today I am giving you a small girl's guide to fat loss. Now, I know most of us are women, not girls, but a small girl's guide sounds better. So let's talk about what counts as a small woman. And it is if you're under 5'4", you count as a petite, small person. But I guess this actually could cover anyone that needs to diet on lower calories. So you might be taller, but maybe you don't move very much. Maybe you have any limitation with injuries, or perhaps you just don't have as much time to get in as many steps in as you like. Or you're someone who's maybe relatively lean and you only have a couple of kilos to lose, because that last 3 kilos can be the hardest because things have changed in the body. So really, this is for anyone that has to diet on lower calories. Now, I'm never going to tell you to diet on 1,200 calories because that is miserable and very hard to stick to, and you're going to have less success, I believe, if you do diet on 1,200 calories. And you'll have more success if you just allow yourself to diet on slightly more and accept that the rate of loss is going to be a bit slower. I this reminds me of the tortoise and the hare, like slow and steady wins the race. And it's very true here. Like if you try and diet on 1,200 calories, for most of us, it means we never actually finish the race because it's just too hard and we just get stuck back and forth at the beginning. So going at a slower pace, you may think it would take longer, but actually it means you'll actually get to the end rather than getting stuck at the beginning. I'm going off a bit of a tangent there, but anyway, so if you are a small person or someone who has to diet on lower calories, this is going to be a really useful podcast for you. So I am 5'3". I am 162 centimeters. So I know the struggles of having to diet on lower calories and why it feels so much harder for us. And like generic advice these days, so I think we yo-yoed so far in the other direction from eating on 1,200 calories to coaches going, you don't need to diet on 1,200 calories, you can diet on 1,800 calories. And for some people that might be true, but for many of my clients, they need to diet on significantly less because 1,800 calories might be closer to their maintenance. So the generic advice really isn't going to help you. So I want to, in this podcast, explain to you why it's going to be harder so that you can just stop beating yourself up, and also how you can navigate it so you're going to get results. So firstly, why is fat loss harder for us petite princesses? And obviously it's because we're shorter, so we need less calories to function, to simply stay alive. So our basal metabolic rate will be lower than someone who's taller. Let's say me and tall Tara are lying on a bed all day, absolutely doing nothing. The amount of calories that our body burns just to keep us alive is going to be significantly different. She's going to have more, I'm going to have less. So less total body mass means you're burning less calories at rest. It also means that you burn less calories, like we could go on the same walk and she would burn more calories than I would, which means lower total energy expenditure, which means we need less calories to function. So not only that, but like I say, we expend less energy from movement. So that's kind of unfair. So someone walking 10,000 steps a day that is taller will burn more, and someone who's smaller will burn less. So hopefully that kind of makes you understand why we need less calories, because they've got more mass, they need more. And that's why men can diet on something disgusting like 3,000 calories. It's just not fair. Number 2, why is it harder for us? We live in an obesogenic environment. Sorry. Which means that the world we live in today is just designed to promote obesity. So driving everywhere, having higher calorie foods available, desk jobs, like we're not encouraged to be out and about, moving, trying to expend energy. Everything pushes us towards doing less, when actually doing less, eating more. And obviously for weight loss, we need it to be the other way around. So this means you have to really make a conscious effort to create an environment or create a life where you are moving. So let's say you work from home. Even if you worked in the office, you did a desk job, at least then you might be walking to the train station or going out at lunch or something like that. But if you work from home, there's literally no reason to walk. What I say to my clients here is to give yourself a bit of a commute. So walk to work, to your desk. So make sure you get a walk in the morning, make sure you walk after, and try and get away from your desk at lunch. That usually helps. But, everything is designed to keep us lazy and big. And I don't know if anyone's watched that movie, Wall-E, and it's like set in the future, and there's all those lazy people being floating around on, like, sometimes I worry that is actually where we're heading. So yeah, we live in an environment that is designed to make us obesogenic. I think I said that right. Number 3, hunger does not equate to size. So just because you're smaller, it doesn't necessarily mean that your hunger needs are lower. Yes, maybe in theory, but hunger comes from external factors too. Like, have you ever just been walking along the street and you see a bakery and you're like, that looks good, now I'm hungry? Or, you're watching TV and there's advert for food, or you're not hungry and then you smell something and then you are hungry. Like, these external factors, food is advertised everywhere. So it's really prompting us to think about it more. And then, food is designed to make us want more. Fats and sugars taste delicious together and make you want another one. And then there's things like the fact that food doesn't always serve a physical place, it serves an emotional place. It's often used as a reward or celebration or, commiseration. It serves a different place. And this is another podcast episode, but I don't think we need to totally make food just be a physical thing. It is okay to sometimes, comfort eat, but it's something that we shouldn't be doing all the time, and we need to work around that if it is a coping mechanism. But anyway, that's a different podcast day. And then there's eating out. So the average meal in Australia is around 1,000 calories. So if you're trying to diet, that is the majority of your deficit calories for smaller people. So if you are going to eat out a lot, it's going to make it hard to stay in that deficit. Even when you're not dieting, it's going to be harder to stay at maintenance. It makes it really easy to gain weight. Like, if your maintenance calories are already lower, let's say they're 1,900 or even 1,800, a 500 calorie deficit is going to feel really hard. Dieting on 1,300 calories will feel much more restrictive than dieting on 1,800 calories. Like, even when you give yourself a couple of 100 calories more, it feels so different. After you've got all the things that your body needs, so like, your protein, your fibers, your variety of veg, your healthy fats, there's a lot less room for fun stuff. So it's more likely that it's going to be harder to stick to for a longer period of time if you are dieting on lower calories. It could feel that it could lead to you then eating more because you're hungry, and then you overeat, and then you feel like you're failing and getting nowhere. So you give up. This is what I often find happens with people dieting on lower calories. It's not fair. It's simply not fair. I would love to diet on 2,000 calories. Like, that would be the dream. But I also like being small. I do think there's some advantages to being small. Maybe that's just a personal opinion, but I like being shorter. Anyway, I am going to tell you the things that I do with my clients and for me to help kind of navigate fat loss, and not just practical approaches, but kind of the mindset you have to have behind it, because you do need a different mindset and a different expectation. Because if you have certain expectations that you're not achieving, then you're going to feel like you're failing. So actually, I'll address that first. You've really got to manage your expectations and just accept a slower rate of fat loss. So you can either there's two options. You can either try and stick to low calories and be miserable and hungry and turn into a complete social hermit. And, maybe you do stick this out for the desired amount of time. And then maybe this makes you catapult back to your old habits because it was so miserable doing that. Or maybe you don't even stick it out. And then there's option B, which is to increase your calories a little and still enjoy your life with a bit more flexibility. So I definitely know which one I would rather. So honestly, if you are smaller, a 250 gram fat loss rate of loss per week is going to be much more achievable. Oh my God, much more achievable for you than aiming for 500 grams to a kilo a week. If you don't have much to lose, or if you are smaller, a kilo a week is a huge amount to try and chase, and it's more likely to end you up in a worse place because, as for all the reasons that I've just said. So on average, 250 grams per week is a great amount of loss for a smaller person. So if that's what we're aiming for and that's what you're achieving, you're going to feel more satisfied than if you're aiming for something that's unachievable, and then you're going to feel disappointed. One of the things that I encourage my smaller clients to do is to increase their energy expenditure. So for a smaller woman, or I would say when you're in a fat loss phase, aim towards getting your steps closer or between 12,000 to 14,000 steps a day, just to help increase that energy output. And if you don't have time to do that, then adding in a little bit more cardio. And don't get this confused with me saying you need to do an excessive amount of cardio, because you don't need to. But if 12 to 14,000 steps a day because of time is something that you can't do, then getting as many steps in as you can, and then some gentle cardio. Doesn't have to be an extreme HIIT class, just steady state cardio will help you increase that energy expenditure and not be too much stress on the body. But I know I would rather walk. I'm fortunate I have the time, but I also have a walking pad and a desk and a stand-up desk, which definitely helps me get my steps in. And I also have a high energy dog, which, now I really don't. Come rain or shine, hangover or not, or whatever, I have to get that walk in because otherwise Loki goes a bit crazy. For anyone that doesn't know Loki, he is called a Cocker. So he's a cross between a King Charles Cavalier and a Cocker Spaniel, and the Spaniel in him is very, very, very energetic, so he needs lots of walking. If you don't follow me on Instagram and don't know who he is, then do, because I'm biased, but he's very sweet. Anyway, just get distracted by him so easy. He's actually been quiet, which is very good. So the other thing that I really like to focus on instead of weight loss is focusing on strength training and taking measurements. So instead of just thinking how small can I make my body, I want us to be thinking how strong. I can be a pocket rocket. I can be small but mighty, How strong can I make this body? How can I build health, muscle? Like, what can I give my body instead of what am I constantly trying to take away? So I would say shifting your priority to body recomposition over fat loss is going to be beneficial for anyone, but it's going to completely transform your body shape, and it's more likely to give you that definition, that toned physique that most people want, that they think the fat loss will give them, but you need fat loss and muscle building. Again, this might be another podcast, but shifting your focus to body recomposition is going to really help that mindset. And also doing weekly measurements. So one other thing I do with the scales as well, if someone always takes it in kilos, if they have an expectation of how much weight they want to lose, I get them to shift it to pounds or stone and pounds, so that there's not really a semblance of an expectation, and people don't really have an expectation of how the measurements are going to go. So when you just see it, and even if you just see your thigh comes down a centimeter 1 week or your waist comes down a centimeter, you're still able to equate that to progress rather than feeling disappointed that you didn't lose like a kilo on the scale. Now, this one is really, really, really important when you're dieting on lower calories. Eat smart. Now, what do I mean by that? Prioritizing protein and fiber is really going to help keep you full. Not only it's going to fuel your body, but it's going to lead you to feeling much more satiated and less snacky and less picky. So the meals that you're eating, I'm not saying cut out carbs, but because I would never say that, but thinking of things with higher volume, lots of vegetables, maybe slightly less starchy carbs, lots of protein is going to help stick to that deficit. But also make sure you do include some fun things. So, make room for your coffee and your Freddo Frog every day if that's what you want. Don't feel like you're completely restricting yourself of any joy. And, some days you might want to eat it, some days you might not. Either way is fine. But try and keep some things in there that you enjoy, but also think of nourishing your body and fueling your body. And if you aren't already tracking your intake is something that I think you should be doing to give you an awareness of portion sizes. So without any expectation, if you're not already tracking, I would have a go at tracking what you're already eating for 2 weeks to just see what your intake is. And now, obviously, that's going to go down a bit because when we're thinking about it, one of the beauties of tracking is that it creates a pause between what we're about to eat and actually eating it. So it will probably be a little bit less, but you might start to notice the times where you reach for snacks or a bit of this, a bit of that, or your portion sizes were too big. Even if you aren't tracking for every meal, it's just a great way to get an idea of portions that are working towards your goals. So track your intake for a couple of weeks if you're not already. Maybe if you've been tracked in the past, come back to tracking for a little bit. You can also try the flexible day framework, which I can't remember which episode it is, but I've done another podcast episode on it. Maybe it's just called Flexible Day Framework, but I've only got a few other podcasts on here at the moment, so listen to them all and then you'll find it. But if you're smaller, giving yourself a bigger calorie buffer for dinner can be really helpful, and you don't have to track everything. And you're really going to hate this last one, but ladies, got to be patient, got to trust the process. I know that it's frustrating that fat loss is slower when you're seeing other people, comparing yourself to other people's journey. Maybe they're losing a kilo a week. Remember, we all come from different places. I would rather my fat loss was slower, more sustainable, and I actually achieved it than being stuck in that yo-yo dieting cycle. And sometimes with that increase in energy expenditure, you may find that you are able to actually diet on slightly more, maybe 1,600, maybe even 1,700, just from getting your energy expenditure up. Also, just a side note on that, there is a diminishing law of returns with steps. So I would say don't kill yourself to get over 15,000 steps a day. After we hit 15,000, the benefits are just so minimal compared to the first up to 15,000. So that 12 to 15,000 window, if you're naturally doing it anyway because you've got a demanding job or you're just busy or whatever it is, a demanding physical job, then that's fine. But don't purposefully kill yourself to get over 15,000 steps. But if you just take it slow and steady, you will achieve your goals. And having someone to support you along the way is going to be really valuable for those times where you feel like you're not doing enough, for the times where you're not sure whether you're making the right amount of progress, for the times where you feel like you're stuck. That is where having a coach can really help. And, everything, all of the above is exactly, everything that I've said so far is exactly how I lost weight in a sustainable way. For me, I think the most I lost in, from my heaviest to kind of roughly where I am now in this sustainable way, was about 5 kilos. It's how I've been able to maintain it as well, because, I make similar choices now because I know that I can't diet on, or my maintenance is a bit lower maybe than someone else's. And it's how I maintained it as well. So it's exactly the things that I do with my clients too. So if you are a small woman and you've got fat loss goals and you need help getting there, then this is exactly what I am here for. Have a look at the show notes. If you want to check out my website, it's on there. If you have any questions, please do feel free to send me a WhatsApp. Or if you just want to dive straight in and sign up for one-to-one coaching with me, then I have an application form. It's a no obligation. You can apply, we can chat. If you feel like now's not the right time, that's fine. But if you feel like you've been stuck and you want to get unstuck, then I am here to help you. But regardless whether you want to carry on with the coach or not, hopefully you found this advice useful. And if you're not already following me on Instagram at Coaching with Daisy, I am always trying to post some value there for you. So have a jump on my Instagram. And I will leave you there for the week. So thank you for listening. And I will chat to you next week. Bye.